Hi, welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner. I'm a critic, consultant, and programmer based in Toronto, and this is the other thing I do. TIFF is still rolling along this week, and my guest today is Todd Rohal, a writer and director whose filmography includes The Guatemalan Handshake, The Catechism Cataclysm, and Nature Calls, among others. His latest film, and this is why we have language warnings, is Fuck My Son, a gleefully scabrous comedy, or maybe a thriller, about a battle of wills between two mothers over whether one of them will have sex with the other's son. It's making its world premiere in TIFF's Midnight Madness program this Wednesday, September 10th at the Royal Alexandra Theatre, with a second screening Thursday, September 11th at 4 p.m. in the Scotiabank 12. That is the IMAX room, and that is absolutely where you should see this film. Go to tiff.net and search the title for tickets. Todd picked Hold Me While I'm Naked, George Kuchar's landmark 1966 underground short about a movie director trying to convince his actress to shoot a nude scene, which is either a brilliant metaphor for desire or for artistic frustration, or both. It's a key entry in Kuchar's filmography, which defined itself through its proudly handmade aesthetic and outsider sensibility, and its unapologetic interest in intimacy and sexuality. Todd also wanted to touch on Thundercrack, the hardcore epic Kuchar wrote and co-starred in 1975, and somehow Weird Al Yankovic's UHF gets in there too. When you think about it, it does not make sense. This is Someone Else's Movie.
I think like Hold Me While I'm Naked is foundational to me, but it was like, I was going through, other movies that everyone had talked about, and I was like, I had some ideas. It's like, what's fun to talk, what's a movie that truly will just fun to spark a conversation. So I was going through all kinds of stuff. I was like, what movies do I really not like, or just like some duds or some, but still didn't think those would be fun conversations. I was thinking about the Daft Punk movie Electroma, which is a movie I saw that really shocked me, and like the fans hated and stuff. It's like that kind of stuff. But it came back to like George Kuchar, who is was somebody I think like anybody that might go to film school hears about in film school. Mm-hmm. And watched 16 millimeter prints of his work. And I got to meet him, spend time with him and his brother, and correspond with him, which we can talk about. But it's like to me, this movie still, for as short as it is, a 15-minute movie, it is so profound to me. I just rewatched it again before we got on the phone, but it's like I can't pinpoint what it is. It's like what it is, but it's like so funny and goofy, and maybe nothing, maybe everything, and poignant, and like it's, when you look at this stuff, I think I've had a lot of revelations in the last couple of years about myself through being like, these are the people I idolize. This is the work that I love. And maybe it's on the fringes, and maybe it is this way, but it's like seeing that like what feels most true to me is why I connect to these movies. So Hold Me While I'm Naked, I think, is something that's like, it's a good point to kind of look at this for me, to talk about it or have a conversation, about it with someone who's willing. Thank you for doing this. To just kind of dive into that and George's world and all the things that surround that, because it's I don't know if it exists, but maybe there are things that we can kind of get into that say, yeah, what are the tendrils of that still are connected to this movie.
It struck me watching it again, because I had seen it when the documentary It Came From Kuchar came out. That was the thing that either screened with it or was included for reference in the press packet. I'm not totally sure what the circumstances were. And it struck me then, as it strikes me now, which is a really inarticulate attempt to articulate something. Like it feels editorially naive, but not foolish, right? Like it's trying to say something about the hangups of these characters and the restrictions of the world that they're moving through, and to do it all with this weird post-sync handheld weariness, this wobbliness. Like the films themselves, Thundercrack, the feature, the 2-hour 40-minute feature he wrote, feels much more deliberately epic, and has long speeches and like circuitous character relationships, and even though it takes place over the course of one day, it's all really like busy. And this is so spare and simple, and it's just this recurring conversation about people trying to communicate, right, and not being able to, which is kind of the essence of all drama. So in a weird way, like by spoofing the look of the apparent aesthetic of an American indie, one reeler, such as would have been shown in the factory or at that time or something like that, and like some sort of hipster indie thing, he's making the parody, the spoof, and the thing itself. He's honoring it. I don't even know if he knows it, but it comes out as authentic.
Yes, yeah, it's exactly that there's nothing about this that feel like there's something very, yeah, such poignancy with it that you can't pinpoint. And I'm like, well, that's everything I want out of a movie still. Like like anything that tells you, like, starts with a thesis statement and then you end up with the that thesis statement. Like, where did we go? Why did we do this?
Yeah.
And to end up with a feeling that came from something you can't pinpoint, like that I feel like is the goal of other art, but maybe with film it's not. Maybe, it's like I'm always surprised when people will walk out of a movie that's telling you exactly what you already feel. It's like patting you on the back for um patting ourselves on the back for having the same beliefs that we already had before we walked in. It's
Mm.
like I don't think that is what art is supposed to do. And so yeah, this movie's always really stuck with me in that way because it's got it's an yeah, maybe it's that it's inarticulate but also just ambiguous in the best ways. It's like it's also about filmmaking, and I think truly the movie about that really pinpoints the feeling of making something where you're pursuing this goal of like what is it ultimately, like creating and finishing a movie gives you, like what is that feeling, and then really what the process is like and how disappointing it can be. It's like if you're looking for intimacy, you're looking for connection with people, and like really making a movie just does the opposite of that. It's like it can cause arguments and depression, and like trying to get anything made, especially now,
Mm.
is impossible. So it's like just failure, 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 failure. And like George, in look, this movie is what year is this? 68 that he made this? Or no, 60.
666.
66. It's like this isn't even like coming from like a studio side of making movies, but it's just like even just attempting to make an independent film on your own, with a Bolex, still has this hollow feeling of like, oh God, these people still don't want to do it. Like they're off having sex with each other. I'm trying to make this movie, they're off doing their own thing. They kind of lost interest after a little bit or something, like convincing people to help you fulfill your dream and the emptiness of that, just eating, some burn up steak and beets with your mother in the kitchen. It's like it's such a strange and truly like universal feeling I think a lot of filmmakers or artists have, too. Like I can't really speak for that, but like as a filmmaker where it's just like this is not a beautiful this is not a beautiful lifestyle. Like even with this new movie we have, it's at TIFF, but I'm broke. It's like I have no money. Like it's not like this comes with anything. Um, so I think there is, even for me seeing this when I was whatever 19 or 20 for the first time, and that it was poignant then, and now seeing it so many years later, and it's got a different poignancy, and again 15 minutes long, with no real narrative to it. I think that really qualifies for a substantial piece of artwork, to really say that this is art, right? That you can keep looking at something and seeing other aspects to it.
Yeah, I mean, God, there's a line of dialogue which I think is just supposed to be funny, but is actually kind of the most complex statement on the impossibility of achieving art, of like the inability of an artist to communicate his intentions to other people, which is just simply in trying to persuade someone to take her bra off. He says, "What is it? You know what I'm about to say. The beauty of the stained glass window is offset by the perversity of your brassiere," something like that. And it's such a great line because it's eloquent. Like it's almost poetry.
All of George's, I mean, that's the thing about George's writing is like so incredible. I mean, like, and that's like in Thundercrack, like the script that he wrote, every line of dialogue in that is just like, I think it's worth turning the subtitles on for that movie because the audio is pretty bad, but just to see George's writing, and just thinking of how intentional it was. And I wrote down Andy Lampert is this great writer and filmmaker, and he put together this George Kuchar book that's like super thick book of
Oh, wow.
it's just called the George Kuchar Reader, but he has a handwritten thing in there. Is it okay if I read this to you, like George's
Oh,
own
yeah, yeah, yeah.
synopsis of Hold
Please,
Me While I'm Naked?
please do.
So this was for a screening I think he did, and it was just written in George's very distinctive cursive handwriting. It says, Hold Me While I'm Naked, 17 minutes. A color bath of sparkling sensuality surrounded by the frigid porcelain of white virginity, unable to break free because of drain cloggage. It foams with heady lather of truth, completely unruined by mineralized morality, in non-breakable plastic tubes that never leave unsightly bathtub rings. And I realize my voice is terrible saying this.
No, no.
Zesty color that makes you nice to be near helps to elevate this flowing film into the level of liquid consciousness that is so poignant it floats. It's like summing up his movie in these beautiful words as a soap commercial type thing. It's just like and his just use of I love how he alliteration stuff, whatever, it's
Hmm.
just like using uh like everything sounding like some weird ad executive talk, and in his dialogue it's he all of his titles are like that. I mean, his whole world just writes like that, like and that clearly had a lot of inspiration on other people, his students as well. Their titles, all their titles for a lot of the movies he made out of the Art Institute just had the best. Even if the movies weren't good, the titles were some of the greatest in cinema history.
Yeah. Well, and they're delivered. I mean, his dialogue is delivered in this honking Bronx accent, which makes it even better.
Yeah,
Because,
talking about a girdle, the girdles and stuff in Thundercrack, it's
yeah,
like with that Bronx, with his voice, which is so wonderful for that. But he knew it. It's like he was just like that his character of is just was so unique and so yeah, and it just really, yeah, that's what these movies really, what really comes through. I think especially in Only While I'm Naked, it's just like his personality is just all in there.
yeah. I mean, it's a form of savantery, obviously, because it's incredibly complex and elaborate, but also so clear that he can't do anything else. Like this is how he has to perform and how he has to function. But watching him as an actor and a filmmaker, like sort of arguing with himself, like what that performance is and how it looks with everything else, and the roles, yeah, but like Thundercrack, where he's writing for himself and everybody else, and he shows up like Thundercrack is this incredible. It's like Virginia Woolf written by Russ Meyer, and and then somehow also like because it's kind of a parody of an old dark house movie, and it's this collection of eccentrics showing up and all having sex with each other, and for what is it, 2 hours and 5 minutes, it's just people we don't know, and then he shows up with a gorilla, and it's like, oh no, this was worth sitting through. I can't imagine what it would have been like to experience it with an audience. It had an intermission, um,
Yeah.
but it is like I don't I don't know that I could argue it as genius, but it is the work of someone who has clearly thought it all through. Like there is an intentionality to it and a joy, a glee of just how silly it is. And then Springsteen writes a song with the same name, and everybody gets confused and breaks the internet searches.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that this Jeremy Allen White movie is about Bruce Springsteen seeing Thundercrack and then writing a song about it. Because that's what happened in Badlands. It's like he was very inspired by Terrence Malick, so why not be inspired by Kurt McDowell and George Kuchar? But yeah, it's like I know I've seen some of Kurt McDowell. So Kurt McDowell was a student of George's, and then they had relationship together and stuff. This was all before that was unheard of in
Mm-hmm.
school times. Um, but but like Kurt, as far as I know, I don't know a lot about his whole career, but I remember seeing like his short films. I would do little film series in when I went to school in Ohio called Dirty Shorts Night, and we showed really dirty movies. And we showed Kurt's movie Siamese Twin Pinheads, which was just am I allowed to describe it in your podcast of what happens in this?
We have an explicit warning. You can say whatever you want to say.
Okay. So I don't know. There's no foul words in it, but it's like Kurt and another guy. I think it may have been the guy from Thundercrack. Come out with like pantyhose over both of their heads, and they have no shirts on, and they're both wearing diapers, and it's yeah, Siamese twin pinheads. So they're acting like they have mental deficiencies. This is my 2025 synopsis of this. And then they start singing, and this is again a recollection from watching this in 1996. Um, Reach into each other's pants and jerk each other off. I believe that's the plot of Siamese twin pinheads. So, and again, like these are movies like what from the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and like just this, I love that, that provocative time. And I think any artist like, oh man, I love when things were provocative and we don't have that anymore. And it's like, well, it was truly hated, I think, back then too, by a lot of people. It's like there was a lot of uh, you know, a lot of reaction against these kind of movies, and especially probably pointed towards their sexual preferences too. Like this is just what these gay people are doing in San
Right, right,
Francisco, and
right.
it's awful, and this is how arts institutions get shut down because of them. But it's like they're truly, it's like I really feel like these are the dialogue in Thundercrack and what Kurt's doing in there too of just bringing these weirdos together and like using his own sensibilities mixed with George's to make something so outrageous, like is is truly like at that time period transgressive, and it's like, and that just automatically makes it important to me. I think like it's like that is like we need that stuff because it allows for other things to come through. It's like, what is that? That's like the boring drill of, it has to come in through the thing that starts the bigger tunnel. It has to start with something, and usually that is things that are this subversive and transgressive, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking about it in the context of what else was happening at the time, right? Like from 1966 to 1975, you have everything. Like you have
Mm.
the love generation, you have the civil rights struggles starting to sort of burn out with assassinations and the Vietnam War is raging, and then out of that you get the protest movements, and then somehow that turns into the Stooges and the Ramones by the time Thundercrack is out, and Kurt McDowell really does feel like a punk filmmaker who doesn't have a classification yet. Like they don't
Yes.
know what to call him. And this is a marvelous line here I pulled up the Wikipedia on Thundercrack to make sure I had all the cast names, but this is great. Someone has written, Thundercrack is more recently regarded as a cult film. It bears the influences of Jack Smith's lush DIY camp aesthetic and Nan Goldin's glimpses of countercultural bohemia. And while I can't disagree with any of those things, I don't know that they're intentional. It's all just there. It was all happening at that time. And so now it looks like that in retrospect. But all of these projects are happening in isolation. And it's not, like Kuchar's style and McDowell's style are, I think, very different in that McDowell was much more of a formal provocateur. He knew where to put the camera to make something look expensive, even if it wasn't. And Kuchar just kind of points it wherever he wants. It's almost like a vulgar aesthetic versus a cleaner one, except that the cleaner aesthetic of McDowell's films is still designed to capture as much vulgarity as possible.
That's a good way. Although I would say, "Hold Me While I'm Naked," every frame of that I think is the most beautiful thing on film. It really is, and like seeing it as a print right now, it's like on the internet, it's all. But God damn, the blue shower curtain that's in it, and the backgrounds, and like when George is peeking through the shower in his red shower, like that is all George. That is him look like this bathroom is beautiful. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason he shot in each of those, but it's like I think like I'm very, very, very like taken with like the images that George makes, like that truly have like a mixture of beauty and something putrid, and it's such an aesthetic that's hard to do. And I think maybe that's why the person on it's not Nan Golden stuff. It's like maybe that's why they're referencing that in that, but it's like I know that John Waters has that too, but George is clearly like riffing on and loving Douglas Sirk movies and the beauty of those, but doing it on this 16 level. But I still think like his movies are the most beautiful images on 16, and there are feelings of like Scorpio Rising and the Kenneth Anger stuff, and especially
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
music and that kind of stuff. And that's I mean that's the same time what Scorsese's doing with his movies and with music in there too, but especially like that and Jack Smith stuff, which I had seen like Flaming Creatures and all that at the same time. So to me, that all blends together. But maybe what you're saying too is I don't know how overlapping this is. Like I can't see George being like, I'm gonna go make a movie that looks like Jack Smith's movies. It's like it probably didn't. I don't know if they were friends, um, but it has aspects of it, and I think the best aspects of all those because George's has a sense of humor, like a real strong sense of humor, which is not breaking news here, but like not prevalent in experimental film circles, and certainly now, like where it's just like humor is seen as like that's the lowest form of art or something, and um but I'm so attracted to that, those images, that humor, and it's self-deprecating, but then it's also got this incredible poignancy. It's telling you not to take it seriously, and then but it's like emotionally, it's giving you everything, and that is, I don't know. I think that's really had an effect on me subconsciously too, of like, I kind of want to be that. I see myself as that kid in the lunchroom that everybody's like, what's wrong with him? I don't want to sit next to him. But then when you do, it's like there's a lot in there. And you want to keep that kind of, that's how you find your true friends, And I've made things that have been completely dismissed, for looking on the surface like there's nothing there. And it's kind of like, well, fine, I guess that's what it is. But and I think that can be done easily with George's movies too. Like there's nothing here, but it looks on the surface like it's just garbage, but there's so much going on. So yeah, I guess I just hold him in such reverence, because of that. Like for what I see and what's also just hard for me to articulate, I think too.
Yeah, but I think if you could explain it, it would fail. Like it would fail to either live up to the expectation, or it would be, well, that's not it. Like if some you can just simply say this is a movie, a short film about a man trying to make a pornographic movie and getting no cooperation from the actors, which is absolutely what that's about, but it's not the point.
Yeah. It's failure. It's like it's failure and exaggerating on your failures. And maybe that has to do a lot with George's, like the movie too is set in a heterosexual world, right? Where he's
Yeah.
making a heterosexual porno, and George was gay. And that's not brought up in this movie at all, even though he's pretty much playing himself, and it's like that that says something about it too, that like maybe, like I bet George would have been he would have happily taken a career in Hollywood making Douglas Sirk type romantic comedy, but it's like, or not romantic comedies, romantic movies, in George's case, probably romantic comedies.
Yeah, they would have been funny regardless.
Yeah, if George made like Hallmark romantic comedies now, they'd be the greatest of all time. But at the time he couldn't, I'm sure because of the limitations of his sexuality and what who he was. And it's like this movie is about that failure of being able to make the movies he probably, really wanted to. When I did meet him, he was saying like the movie world is so much better than the art world, and he said that like you never ever get involved. Those are the worst people. He's like, movie people, they're just really shallow, but they're still real friendly and they really want to make movies, and like, but he was like, just stay away from the art world. So I really think he was drawn to and would have. I don't know him well. I didn't know him well enough at all to know that, but others could speak for it. But that he would have made some killer comedy stuff on if it had been given the right access to things.
Yeah, I just wonder what his stuff would look like with a budget, with anything that isn't just sort of, duct tape and aspiration. There's no shame in making a movie for no money. People do it all the time, and often, I mean, these films are compelling. It's not like they're failures in terms of getting an image on the screen that actually makes sense and cuts together and plays well. But just the, live sound recording, the difference between not having to sync everything and those things would change the game for him, or would have changed the game for him. But at the same time, you kind of wonder, right? Like, is this just how you want to work after a certain point?
Yeah, he definitely had a lot of different phases of what he was making. Yeah, going into video diaries and then the weather diaries stuff, but making a lot of video stuff. Really, really kind of well ahead the curve of technology,
Mm-hmm.
way ahead of the curve of technology all the time. But yeah, I think like it would have been similar to like a Tim Burton or David Lynch thing, had he had any of these movies been his Eraserhead, or it's like George Kuchar making Pee-wee's Big Adventure would be incredible. Like Pee-wee's Big Adventure is perfect as it is, but like him pairing up with someone like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's such a sad thing to see. It's like that. I love this filmmaker Joe Seidelmeyer, who did like the Where's the Beef commercials and the FedEx commercials. He truly has the biggest voice of 80s comedy that has lasted until today. Like he established that look, the aesthetic of it that's ripped off by, and I use ripped off in a whatever, but like everything from Songs from the Second Floor to the Coen brothers and Raising Arizona to Napoleon Dynamite. It's like all comes from Joe Seidelmeyer's shorts that he did. And he was supposed to direct Easy Money, the Rodney Dangerfield movie. And that would have been, and I don't know, I haven't seen Easy Money, and maybe I've never seen Easy Money, but like it was the whole thing of like Rodney Dangerfield surrounded in that world, shot that way. Like, how great is that movie? And it's such a clear vision, as clear as Tim Burton and Paul Rubens. And like, yeah, George Kuchar and I don't know, who am I thinking of? Like Ernest, like George Kuchar making an Ernest movie would be he would have been the one to pull that off. Maybe Ernest isn't the right.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a Disney production, so that was never going to happen.
But like on a studio level, had they given him that, freedom, I really think there would have been something there, because George obviously predates John Waters. Like John Waters takes his aesthetic from, I don't know what John Waters making an Ernest movie would also be really good. But yeah, it's like there's just something there. George would not, I guess what I'm trying to get at is George would not lose any bit of what his influences and what's in there, the aesthetic that he's at, if he was given more money. He would find a way to make what he does continue to work on a way that the effects level and the whatever, like it wouldn't be like, hey, let's step this up, I need more money to make this stuff better. It's just that he'd have I think he just would have been able to go to town.
Yeah, he would have had a better lighting package, if nothing else.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I do think too of like looking at generative AI stuff too, which is a big thing now. But that George would have loved it, and the stuff that he would have made with it would blow our minds. In this world of in his world of what he would have come up with. I remember too, he was using like early, like pre-Avid, like video editing machines with these effects, and any effect that it came with, he would use it, and use it and find the campiest, funniest ways to use these bad 1990, 89, 90 era video effects in his movies, and they still, if you watched it now, it's like it's still funny, it still works, still great. So him with AI, I just think would change a lot of people's minds. Well, maybe not everybody's.
Yeah, we've all taken up our camps at this point.
Everybody's joined their cult.
Hey, it's Norm, interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my newsletter about physical media, culture, and the Odd Streaming Project. Earlier this week, I wrote about my visit to the mobile Criterion closet at TIFF, and how Criterion has developed its brand over the decades into a sort of cultural lighthouse. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io or find a link in the Semcast Blue Sky account. You like reading about movies? I like writing about them. Come check it out.
This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace, too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
It's funny, when you mention AI and his work, his stuff feels so handcrafted that I would think that almost like the well, not the pornographic stuff, but the anatomical stuff that AI could create, we would end up in a place where nothing is real. Like nothing. There would be not weightless exactly, but it would just take all the humanity out if he was imagining new organs and new body types.
Well, that's what I don't know what he would do. Yeah, I mean, that's just like where the shockingness would come, would be like, what, that's the element that AI wouldn't be able to factor into it, is what would George's brain do with this? So, I mean, that's the thing that we'll never be able to see, but I think that is the element that AI needs, is like, yeah, we don't need a guy that's making Batman movies and whatever, Iron Man movies to make more stuff with AI. Like, who cares? But like for George to be able to have access, just to plug his brain into that, it would create stuff that we will never know, but that would otherwise the world would never have imagined. I think he's truly one of a kind in that way. So
Yeah. The other thing too, of course, is that we're at a place already with computer graphics where you can do anything anyway, right? Like without worrying about generative AI, but you can simply take CG and build characters and build violent effects, whatever you want to do. Guns are no longer necessary. You don't have to shoot a gun in a movie. You could just hold a prop. But the thing that you lose with all of that is that the audience no longer invests in reality in the same way. Like, we simply don't accept that there's any real risk or danger to anything. Like Fast and Furious movies are basically just people playing with Hot Wheels sets on a grand scale now. And watching his stuff, the fragility of the people involved and the bodies and the reality that we're being confronted with over and over again. I mean, yes, Thundercrack is genuinely pornographic, literally close-ups of
the most human movie ever made.
Well, but that's it, right? Like, there is a weird honesty to something like that where it cannot pretend to be anything that it isn't. And this is what I mean about him only being able to work a certain way. And it does it, like, the question then becomes like, is this someone who is incapable of change? Because he's growing and changing and evolving as an artist, but his fixations don't change. They're always about the struggle to get people to be like literally as naked as possible.
Well, not in his other work. I mean, like, it not so much, Yeah, I think like the Weather Diary stuff got much more personal and about him, and that,
right. But that's it, right? Like, it's not physical nudity; it's emotional nudity.
Well, sure, yeah. It's like, well, yeah, that became even more. I mean, that's going more towards like even a YouTube. I mean, he predates. I shouldn't say this. It's like George invented the internet, but like, he was doing the Weather Diaries are basically would be what people are doing. Well, we're doing on YouTube like 10 years ago or something. Just like these, kind of home portraits of him talking to the camera and filming people and talking to people on his travels, all that kind of stuff.
They're testimonials.
Yeah, it's like it's very different. I mean, the video stuff he did is very different from this film stuff, like stuff that he was doing on 16 and these other movies. The Devil's Cleavage got like all these great titles. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, I guess it's like, do we continue to fixate on these same things and tell the same kind of stories? I think George definitely fits into a category. Yeah, he's not as yeah, I think you could recognize it George Kuchar style in anything that he made. Yeah, it does come down to some denominator here.
Yeah. So I think you touched on it, but you told me about your first exposure to Kuchar stuff. How did audiences take it? Whether the people you screened them for, what was that like?
Well, when I first saw it, I was in experimental film class, and we watch everything from Michael Snow's like Wavelength, and and all these would be on prints, and I loved it. I loved watching experimental stuff, and maybe connected with 20% of it. But I remember watching like Bruce Bailey's movie All My Life, and it's just a shot of this bush, and it goes across the bush and then lifts up into the sky, and it's playing that song All My Life. And I was like, what the fuck was that? 5-minute long. And the girl next to me is crying. And I was like, I don't understand what's happening. And I mean, that had never happened to me, being just a white guy from Ohio. Like, when I go to see movies, everyone has the same reaction. This blew my mind. I was like, I don't understand how we watched the exact same thing at the same time for the first time. She's crying and I have no idea what's happening. And then we watched George's movie, and the reaction in the room was, I was like, wanted to stand up and scream like, this is it, this is everything. and other people were just like, this is garbage, and this is, this is worthless, and it doesn't mean anything, da da da. Um, and yeah, it's not a debate about it's like these things were really getting at the heart of like there's something that was so specific within these things that you can't really compare and contrast them. But to see an audience have that kind of reaction was like very invigorating and fun, and like so I think that that was my first kind of like I think the excitement of that and feeling like that you're not being left watching like 50 different experimental movies and just connecting with one, then you're like, okay, it's not that I'm not connecting with any of this. It's like there are very specific pinpoint things that each of us connect with on some wavelength. And that's a very, very, very important lesson to learn, or not to learn, but just to experience, I think. Like, I really like that idea that there's kids out there that are just like, don't have an uncle that's handing them the right music or pointing them in the right direction and being like, I know that nothing right now makes sense to you. I know you don't like football. I know you don't give a crap about sports or, like any of this stuff, but you might really, really, really like this, like Barnes and Barnes album, Fish Heads or something, give that to them and it blows their mind. And it's like just being, as much as we talk about being seen, that goes for everyone, straight and gay and any whatever it is. Like everybody's got some kind of frequency that they're on, that they're just looking for that connection. And I think that, yeah, for me it was George's stuff. But just to know that exists, I think, is an important thing at a formative time in your life. Does that make sense? Am I just babbling on?
No, it absolutely does make sense. I mean, I'm thinking about just the news. I guess it was earlier this year, maybe late last year, that Dr. Demento was retiring, and social media just exploded with, oh, but he's how I learned who my people were.
Yeah,
like it's the lingua franca of the nerd to hear Fish Heads on the radio and go like, what the hell is that? And I need to know more about it. And then you find out one of them is Billy Mummy from Lost in Space, and your head melts. And I mean, I was that kid in the 80s, maybe, probably the mid 80s, early 80s, listening to the weird late night radio and just discovering stuff that, and this is before the internet, you had to go find it in books and records.
Yeah.
It's easier now than ever before to find material, but to connect with other people through that material seems to be harder.
Yeah. Or to find that in real life. I mean, yeah, the number of people, one of my favorite things to ask people is like, what's the first concert you ever went to? And mine was Weird Al. And that's not weird anymore. It's like, but I had this point in my life when it was going to be either the Cramps or Weird Al. And there was this dude I took a Japanese class, and there's this guy in the Japanese class who was like, I got a ticket to the Cramps. It's $15 if you want to go. And I was like, oh man, but my other friend had a ticket to Weird Al that week and I had $15. I could go to one. And I chose Weird Al. And it's like, I'm like, what would my life have been if I'd gone to the Cramps? Like I'd be so cool. I'd be so much cooler. I had friends that had taste back then and stuff. But since then, it's like I met other people that still shamefully kind of say my first concert was Weird Al, and but there's a connection there, I guess, is what I'm getting at, is like what was your first concert you went to?
I'm trying to remember. It might have been Duran Duran.
That's so cool.
I won tickets on a radio show, and the Payolas opened for them, which was a local Canadian band. But I did see Weird Al in 1992 at the Science Center, which is also gone now. He was here for a comedy festival, and I was covering it for the Toronto Star. So I got to do a phone interview with him, but the Star went on strike the week of the festival, and I didn't get to print it.
Oh, no.
We talked about musicianship more than anything else, and about how like his songs, because the parodies had to be so similar and like to approximate the production and the tone and the musicianship, like he just said, like, I've had to surround myself with actual musicians, and it's really weird because I don't think I should be playing with them. And then of course, over the decades, he becomes this incredible virtuoso, and it's just, honestly, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. It's one of those really weird things where somebody inspires generations of children, and now he's this beloved figure, which is so wonderful for him.
Well, also his movie UHF is a masterpiece. And I was at summer camp when it came out, and it was gone by the time I came back, and I was so bummed. All I wanted was to see that movie, and I think I had to wait until it came out on VHS, and until I could see it. So that meant a long, long, long wait. And his manager directed that movie. Jay Levy, yeah, it's like he has not directed a movie, but like if that says anything about movie directing right there, I'm just like, I like, yes, like why are any directors held in esteem if like somebody can make one of the best comedies who's like, hey, my manager will do it. And I don't know if that's how they went about it, but it's like that whole cast, like everything in that movie is like just pitch perfect. And I know that he was, yeah, ashamed of that for years, and it's like, um the movie still holds up now. It's so nuts. It's a shame because again, they could have made some more movies had people not just been fixated on or whatever made that tank at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just the same thing that always makes termite art fail, right? Like the world isn't ready for it, or the audience doesn't show up because there is no audience yet. Like the audience hasn't been built yet. I think ultimately, I mean, I saw it in a theater. I was a little bit older, and there were a handful of people in the theater, and it didn't play very well, obviously, because
Yeah.
you need a crowd. And I don't think everyone in the room knew who he was. That was the other
Really?
thing. It was just this really strange sense that some people laughed at him doing, the hi every, like the delivery, the minute George gets too excited about something and Weird Al comes out,
Yeah.
which is great. It's a really fun little moment, and it just kind of didn't go as well as it could have. But
That blows my mind. That movie's so good. He's so good in it. And like, yeah, even John Paragon as like the son of Kevin McCarthy,
yeah,
like him being like such a like that is such a great character, like he's I don't know, everyone in that, the Conan, the effects in that, which Robert Kurtzman, who did the effects for our movie,
mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to bring our movie into this, but who did that? He did like the Conan the Librarian effects and the muscle suits
The
for the
Rambo suit,
Rambo
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah,
He's so good. It's just
yeah.
like, um, God, that movie truly, yeah, I think it's up there with Airplane and all of that. But it's like such a perfect movie for him to make, of just like parodies of all these different movies at that time, and so many of those movies are still relevant now, which is weird because if he
Mm-hmm.
made UHF 10 years ago, we
89,
wouldn't,
right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
it's
we
a
wouldn't know what any of those movies are that he would be parodying now. It's like they're all just gone.
yeah. Well, I mean, look at the Scary Movie parodies and how the first one is basically beat for beat Scream, and then the second one they just decide to throw in all of Hollow Man for the second act and
Didn't see
try to explain that to
it.
people, and they'll just stare at you.
But that's also the thing about Weird Al, is he's so good at knowing what songs to do, how to do so it's like, and that clearly has an overlap with movies too. So it's like, like our idea of what UHF now would be is obviously, yeah, like on the Scream level. But it's like, I know that he would be, yeah, he's so, like he understands culture so well, somehow, and without bragging about it and being an expert on it. It's like I would love for him to make another movie, but then he had to go do that weird movie, the Weird Al biopic thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like that took talking all these people into doing it still. It's like, not to get us off on that, but it's like how much more obvious does this need to be that there's people are wanting this?
Yeah, but that's the goodwill, right? Like that's the goodwill he's earned over the decades. Like, of course, Daniel Radcliffe is going to want to play Weird Al Yankovic. He's grown up listening to everything that was recorded before he was born, and
Yeah.
still and wants more and wants to be part of it. I was actually going to try to pivot towards your film to ask, because it has musical numbers. Like, did it ever cross your mind to get Weird Al to cover it?
No, it didn't. Well, I made a movie before this, which was very famous, called Uncle Kent 2,
Mm-hmm.
which was a sequel to Joe Swanberg's very, very, very well made and a wonderful film, Uncle Kent, which I've seen once. And we made a sequel to it with Kent, who's a friend. And uh, not a spoiler alert, it's a movie that's made for you not to want to see it, but then once you do see it, the investment is worthwhile, I believe. But
Fair,
it does
fair.
require like you being like, I don't want to see this, and then that becomes part of the joke. So I'm not telling anyone to watch that movie, but it does have a lot of fun stuff in it, including Weird Al at the end of the movie. So Weird Al's in the movie in that. And I'm very surprised he came out to do that for us and to be in a scene where Kent's in bed masturbating and Weird Al kind of comes into the room and stuff. So it's a very, very, there's a footnote of a footnote of a footnote in Weird Al's movie career. And
Well,
probably
but
not helping
that's why
him.
I asked, because it would make sense.
So I think like asking Weird Al to do anything more for Fuck My Son would be difficult. I would love to make an album of because there's like 5 songs in Fuck My Son called Fuck My Son.
Mhm.
And then I would love to do an album with like where I ask other artists. I'd love to get like Angel Olsen and Bill Callahan and different people like that, like songwriters to write some, just be like, that's your assignment. Here's the title, go for it. Whatever you want to do. So that could be possible. But maybe we do ask Weird Al, but I doubt, I think he's got, I think it would be a challenge for him. Yeah. I don't think he would want that. I think it would be like the expectations on what it would have to be would be thwarted.
He could do the parody version, Hump My Son.
Yeah. Love My Son. Yeah. Please bring pleasure to my son. Yeah. The Christian version of it. Yeah. Or I'll get Michael W. Smith to do that if we're going to do that. That would be very fun to get Michael W. Smith or one of these Christian metal bands to do like a, please bring
Striper.
happiness. Striper. That's it. Yeah. Could you do, please bring great pleasures to my son and find him eternal peace.
It is the greatest gift of love one can give, is the gift of heaven.
Gift of, heavenly love.
I feel like we're going somewhere real bad with this. But as far as your film goes, it is like, I don't know that I'd say it's ever Kuchar-esque, because it's got its own aesthetic and its own values. But there is, like, watching Thunderstruck after seeing Fuck My Son, there is this sort of desperate confessional quality to one character that stands out, like the sense that that the mother truly only wants this one thing for her child, and while we never understand why or where, I mean, I guess it's fairly obvious in retrospect. I don't want to spoil it for the audience, but there's a reason her kid's not getting out there. There's an authenticity to her confessions, like to her pleading, that feels very much like some of the dialogue from Thunderstruck, where people are just desperately trying to get the thing they want in a 5-minute scene. And it feels like the entire world, reason, logic, emotion, all those things are stacked against them. Did any of it come to mind? Like, did you think back and connect to Kuchar stuff while you were writing it, at least?
Probably for some of just for trying to find some dialogue. I think it's always like, how would George write something like this? But it's like, it'd be in very, very, very minor things, where it ended up. But I do think about him. I mean, like on my walls, I have a picture of George, I have a picture of Divine. It's like, just so you can be like, how would this person think, as a Ben Turpin, silent film star, how would Ben Turpin do this? But yeah, I think it was just like that truly was like to give your character a full, a real reason, a real drive, like that this mom is like, I just want what's best for my kid, like that's everybody, that defines why we have so many problems right now. So it's like that it was just nice to have something that felt like, for a character that is very clear, very understandable, but the point of view of the movie doesn't necessarily have to show us, like sympathize with her as much. It's a little more fun to, but there is a version of this. I think there was a movie called Jennifer Lawrence made a movie called
No Hard Feelings? That's not
No
it.
Hard Feelings. I think that is it. I haven't seen that movie, but I think that it's a similar thing to this from a different perspective, and it's like, like parents that, it's still, maybe it's goofy in that way of like parents that are just wanting the best for their kid or something. But yeah, I mean, like that's really where that comes from. I think like especially when something's getting goofy or campy, if the people have fully understandable intentions, it like just takes the weight off of having to explain a lot of stuff in the movie. It's like that character can, and Robert Longstreet, who plays that character, can just fully understand where he's coming from and why. It's like, I love this kid. Also, we felt like his character was very sexually liberated. She does not understand what the big deal is about people being picky about who their sex partners are. It's like, what, and he has like a line, and it's like, birds fuck, dogs fuck, even fleas fuck, and nobody will fuck my son, and it's like, well, Yeah. I mean, like that's a hard one to argue with if that's your, if you're that sexually liberated, where you're just like, I see people having sex all the time. You're out there doing this and showing your bodies, and then why won't you touch him? And it's like missing a big, big piece there. But like, that's not abnormal for human beings right now in a lot of aspects. So it felt universal in that way. Yeah, it's like this is a very fun character where you can just easily see what piece she's missing. No one has explained that to her, but it's truly coming from a place of love. So yeah, I guess that's where that comes from. But yeah, the George's stuff would be more like probably in that kind of dialogue. Birds fuck, bees fuck, it's like that, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I get the sense that, you know, he never would have come up with something like the Meaty Mates, but only because the technology didn't exist at the time.
Yeah, if George made an animated cartoon series, or especially was one, yeah, like if he was hired to write for like VeggieTales, that would have been.
Yeah, I did think about VeggieTales. It's the most perverse alternative you could come up with. It's that, well, what's the opposite of vegetables is meat, and then they'll still be religious.
Yeah, they're still religious, but they're a little more Atkins diet focused. Maybe they're a little more like preaching about the values of meat and why you should not be vegetarian.
Yeah, it speaks to me that there is an entire universe at work in your film that we're just not privy to. But there are all kinds of weird little things going on that exist to make us feel better.
Yeah, I think like a fully formed world. Yeah, yeah, just if you wanted to go down that path a little bit more, there's definitely more there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna love it at the Midnight Madness audience. They're not gonna know what to do with it, and then all of a sudden they will, and that's gonna be glorious.
Yeah, I have no idea what to expect. I don't feel like there'll be hatred or vitriol. I hope not. But there's enough of that in the world. But I think like through something like this dirty, I hope that that people will find happiness. That's where I've found it clearly.
That's a perfect ending. That's great. Thank you so much for this. This was so much fun.
It's so great to talk about George and all this stuff, and realizing how much I love him. Like, just like, I mean, I have all these books. It's like, yeah, I have these other books I pulled out and I haven't read in years. Like, there's this good one that Jack Stevenson did that was about John Waters and George, just about camp stuff. And also, I pulled out the Susan Sontag book, like Notes on Camp, which I realized I've never read that essay.
Oh yeah,
and that came out 2 years before Hold Me While I'm Naked. So that was clearly out there, just the whole camp aesthetic thing being defined in, at least in literary circles, but it certainly was like what defines George's work too. And then George's book, this Reflections from a Cinematic Cesspool,
I have not read
he
that.
wrote, and I read this in college and I need to reread it. And I haven't since then. And it's like, his philosophies on how to make films and that no one should ever be left behind. And if they're not talented, you still need to find a role for them if you realize they're a bad actor, and how to go about that stuff. And yeah, like just being able to talk about this is really wonderful, because yeah, I and on another note too, I've taken up enough of your time, but it's like I made this terrible movie called Nature Calls 10, 11, 12 years ago now. And it was a real hard experience for me, because it was just like, kind of like the Kevin Bacon movie, The Big Picture, like where it was just like, it was just such a disaster. And I learned a lot about a lot of things on it. But George died while we were making that. And I was on set and surrounded by people who didn't know George or his work, or even if I mentioned his name, wouldn't have known a thing. And I remember that just being a very profound moment of like feeling like completely at the bottom of life, like that here's this person I admire and I'm doing something that should be connected to that, and it was so far removed from that, from George's world, and now making this movie, which has been such an opposite of that experience, and feeling any kind of because of this conversation, feeling like there is some, like it's not direct, it's not a George Kuchar movie or inspired by him in any means, but I do think like at least George would be proud of this title, and excited by it. And he had, when I was, can I tell you one other story? I'm sorry.
Of course, no, God, no, please.
So after film school, I went to San Francisco for the first time and went to School of the Arts, where he taught, San Francisco Art Institute, and walked the hallways to try to find George, and had VHS copies of my short films, 3 different VHS tapes. and found a student working there. It was summer, and I was like, "Is George here?" And he was like, "No, he's gone for the summer." And I was like, "Well, I brought these movies. I'd like to give them to him." He's like, "Well, I'll give them to him." And like a year later, no, maybe less than a year, 8 or 9 months later, I got a letter in the mail from George that he had watched all of these stupid student films I made, all three of them. So at least an hour of him sitting down, putting three different tapes in there, and wrote me a message that clearly and it was like, so, like, keep doing it, and this character is really great. And, handwritten by George. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just like, these are the people that I've connected with, like through their film, and George being like a gay filmmaker who's making these really campy things. And, I'm a straight white guy from Ohio, but that it's affected me in a way artistically, my sense of humor, and also just how I see others in the world, and it's like how much of an effect that really has over like making this other movie that just was just so not connected to myself, I guess, and seeing the profound impact that has. So anyhow, all of that to say, I really appreciate you indulging me in this conversation to talk about George and all this stuff.
It's the best. When people are passionate about something, this is the thing I've learned over and over again with the podcast. The best way to get to know someone is to have them tell you what they love. And people just, like, the talking points get put aside, all the other stuff, it just goes out the window, and people give you themselves. And it's just such a great direct line into somebody and their creativity. And so, yeah, I think, okay, the only other question I have, and it's because it's almost impossible to answer, I suspect, because there is no solve for this. Fuck My Son has such a small, concentrated cast. If George was around, would you have put him in it somewhere?
And he would have, I mean, I love Robert Longstreet in there, but I would have cast him as the mother in a heartbeat. Like, but doing makeup on George and having it, he'd be so down to do all of this. Like, and that was a tough thing, like talking about casting, where it was just like, well, yeah, you can't just go do a casting call for this movie. It has to be, you have to know. Oh man, that would have been like, George is an old woman with real makeup that makes him look
convincing.
That would be so fun. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was, especially in his 80s, just doing the dialogue would all change. But yeah, that'd be just thinking about every line and going through the script and writing, tailoring it to him, or just being like, George, can you write your own dialogue for this? Would be, oh wow, yeah, well, hey, there is AI now. I can maybe I can get somebody to do a George Kuchar remix.
Oh, I don't think any computer can capture what he was.
No, yeah, or how he would do that. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
My thanks to Todd Rohal, whose new film Fuck My Son has its world premiere at TIFF this Wednesday, September 10th at midnight at the Royal Alexandra Theatre, and a second screening Thursday, September 11th at 4 p.m. in the Scotiabank 12. You can get tickets by going to tiff.net and searching for the title. The whole title. Thanks also to Peter Kaplowski. He knows what he did. You can find Todd on Instagram at Todd Rohal, all one word, and you can find Hold Me While I'm Naked online at the Internet Archive. You can also find Thundercrack on Blu-ray from Synapse Films in a surprisingly good restoration given the nature of the elements. You can find me on Blue Sky at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/Semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 41 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps. It truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, get all the boosters. I'll see you next week.